What is going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday, and welcome back to the Ryan Ripken Show live at 5. Now, yesterday we do our big shows on Monday and Thursday in the big studio. The other days we're a little bit remote, and we have so much that we're trying to get into. So that's why we're doing it. And we love to do this on the day-to-day. So to help us get to that point, continue to hit that like and subscribe button. Continue to help support us with it. And we appreciate each and every one of you. For our channel members, you saw a little bit of the behind the scenes as we were getting ready for this show. I got a little bit carried away, Zach, with the Zooms again and showing how I make an espresso. But we got a lot to talk about. But before we have that, and you can explain all of that, how are you doing there, my White Star salesman?
We're doing great. Another day in paradise. We got a lot of baseball. It's a hot stove. We're heating up. Free agency is technically underway, but Major League Baseball is a free agency unlike any other league, where every other league it is a mad dash to get as many guys as you can as fast as possible before they go elsewhere. In baseball, it's almost wait as long as you can for these players to get the best deal. I mean, unfortunately, it is not uncommon for these things to go into spring training. So hopefully as we keep doing this, the hot stove keeps heating up, but it's definitely warming. The rumors are flying, and there's a lot to talk about.
A whole lot to talk about here. And Ollie, we're not gonna play with this ball. So he is. I love my pup, but I think my pup loves this more than anything else. He just dropped this in my hand. Do you blame him? Just like his dad, he loves just playing ball, it could have gone so much worse with what was going to happen there. Anyway, we're going to have Tim Kurkjian join us this episode. We're going to talk a lot about the offseason. Could ask Tim a lot of questions, baseball related, not baseball related. He's one of our favorites, so insightful, so knowledgeable, and just one of the great guests that we've had on here on the show. So we will talk to him about that. But Zach, where do we want to start? Because there is a lot to get into, but maybe it's the story that has to do with, I guess it's a first for one manager, and a veteran manager apparently isn't as happy about it.
Yeah. So let's listen to this, because Ryan, I am very intrigued by Joe Mann's comments here. So let's listen to this and then react on the other side.
Quite frankly, I'm using the word insulting only from the perspective that it appears as though you don't have to have any kind of experience on a professional level to do this job anymore. Because when I was coming up, you had to have all that. You had to go through the minor leagues. You had to ride your buses. I was a scout. I started in 1981. I finally got a managerial job in 2006. I mean, there was a rite of passage, a method to get to that point. So to think that somebody could just jump in there and do what you took 20 some years to be considered qualified to do, it is kind of insulting. Now, having said that, the next part is I wish him nothing but the best, because I've watched videos of the guy and I could actually understand why it's perceived that he's ready to do something like this. So I guess the overarching point is, in today's world, prerequisites to get jobs of this caliber, or even jobs like a mere job of New York City now, it doesn't require the years of experience that you may have had to have gone through in the past. I think communication skills, perceived leadership skills, those are the kind of things that become more valid or important, and not necessarily having kind of like internal knowledge, working knowledge of the craft at hand, which would be Major League Baseball or running a city. So it's not just baseball. It permeates the entire world right now.
So is this a good thing or a bad thing for baseball?
I don't think it's either. I think it's just baseball. It's going to be a good thing for the Giants if it works out well, which honestly I am rooting for him. I really liked, because I didn't know of him until he was hired, and then I started looking at videos, and then I said, oh, I get it. I understand why.
You're muted.
So that was on the Murph and Marcus show. Joe Madden was talking about that, and he was talking about Tony Vitello. If you mentioned, he said the Giants, that's who Tony Vitello is going to be a first-time manager, not just in the big leagues, first-time manager in professional baseball, going from the University of Tennessee out there to San Francisco. And above all, Zach, you heard a guy, or what I heard in this conversation is not that Joe wishes ill will on the guy. He wants to see him succeed. He likes his persona, likes what he's capable of doing. But part of Joe is really infuriated with the process of what's changed, because back then and what it's been like up until this hire really is that you had to be in pro ball to an extent, and then you had to kind of work your way up. That's where I think we start with that part. But yeah, I mean, that's how baseball has been for all these years. It's been guys grinding to a point. We look at every manager. Brandon Hyde in Baltimore was a Joe Madden disciple. Tony Manzolino becoming the interim, been around the game for a while. We can go down the list of who just got hired. All the hires, to be honest, Zach. That's why Tony Vitello is the unique circumstance here.
Yeah, this as he was talking, I just kept on thinking about, I think the best way to put it is, that little, scene in Malcolm in the Middle where he's like, the future is now, old man. It kind of feels like that because baseball's catching up. We've seen the moves in the NBA from college right to coaching and being the head coach. We've seen moves from college football into the NFL and becoming a head coach. And it felt like, this is the first time, like he's not lying. Like this threw out everything. The Giants threw everything that baseball's ever known about the process of becoming a manager out the window. But that, I don't think that means that Vitello is any less qualified, especially in this day and age. If this was 2, 3, 5, 6 years ago, I would agree. I'd agree that, hey, this is a little bit weird. But with NIL, all of that, these guys playing in college are professionals now. It's at that level where they are getting paid. Sometimes these guys are getting paid a lot more than the guys in minor leagues. So you have to handle that. There's a whole different feel to it in minor league baseball compared to college baseball now. So no, it is not a usual hire. He did not go the conventional way. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think this might be the door opening for Major League Baseball to catch up in some sense to the other leagues of, hey, it doesn't have to be all the guys in this league that can lead a team to the promised land, to put that team over the hump. There's some damn good baseball minds in college baseball that if they get the chance to manage in the major leagues, they can stand up and be one of the top guys.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of this whole situation, it's, are you capable to do the job? And the job entails to win ball games. And that's the goal. Whether you've been in the minors coaching for 20 years or you've been on a staff, winning is the focus here. And so when I opened up with those, just explaining, Joe's frustrated with that. But my personal opinion, Zach, I'm with you here on, you're looking for the right guy. And if Tony Vitello is the right guy, that's all that should matter. And when you're looking at the next wave of coaching, you're right. College baseball has changed from where it was. But the biggest challenge that I'm curious to watch is how Tony Vitello goes from running a college program to then handling a big league locker room, because he's going into a place where it's a different style of how it's run. The college game is different than the big league game. And the big league game is also, let me back it up. College is different than pro ball. And then from in the minor leagues to get to the big leagues, there's a different sense of what you're doing. And so I'm really just curious how you're going to run the day to day. But you saw it in the NFL, Zach. Sean McVay, young coach. Mike McDaniel, who I know people, hey, they're back now because they beat the Bills. But Mike McDonald out there with the Seahawks. You're seeing younger coaches come in. And in baseball, by the way, we've seen younger managers come in and younger GMs, executives. The Tampa Bay Rays, it was Kevin Cash. Stephen Vogt just retired and took off his jersey as the player and put it back on as the manager. Craig Albernaz being hired for the Orioles, he's a young manager, relatively speaking. So I don't think it should matter. It's just, if it doesn't work, Zach, if Tony Vitello isn't successful, then I don't think we're going to see many college coaches make this jump. But if he is, then now all these executives are going to have this broadened view of, well, wait a minute. If I like this guy as a coach, I'm going to be willing to take a risk. I think this is where it all comes down to. And I'm really excited to see how it all plays out. But it's all about winning. Like the Giants, they're like, Buster Posey isn't going to hire this guy if he doesn't expect that this is going to lead them to get back to being in contention.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like winning fixes everything. We've talked about that how many times. It's if Vitello comes in and they win, they go to the playoffs, this opens up the door. But we talked about the second Vitello was hired. We came on the show and we said there is so much pressure on him, and not really for himself, because I said for him, if he fails here, he can pick whatever team he wants to go back to coach in college, and they will offer him a bag for it, But when you think about other college coaches that maybe want to make that jump, this is a big, big, big test for those guys. Because if he goes out there and suddenly the Giants are in the NLCS next year, they make a big jump from floundering at the end of this year to all of a sudden they're in it. Then suddenly that changes how you conduct your coaching searches. And maybe it's not even have to be a manager. Maybe it's all of a sudden, hey, we want that guy, the bench coach from such and such, Joe, I'll show you from Arkansas. We want that guy to be our bench coach. Vanderbilt, their first base coach. I think he's got a lot of experience. I think we could, use someone like that. I think it opens up that, but it all starts with, Vitello's gotta show that these guys can do that and you can make that jump. I saw some people in the comments talking about it earlier, and I agree, guys like Stephen Vogt, less than a year. He served as the Mariners. He retired, got hired as the Mariners bullpen and quality control coach. And then within a year was hired to become the Guardians manager. So he didn't go through that grind of, going up. You look at a guy like the example that was used in the comments, an Albert Pujols, obviously he didn't get a job, but he was interviewing everywhere. Guys like Kurt Suzuki and Craig Stammen, they didn't coach. They were actually in executive roles, as assistants to the GM. So I think this is where baseball is now, is there's so many ways to get to becoming the manager, to find your head guy. I'll even use this, Buster Posey, taking over as GM. That wasn't something where it was like, oh, no one heard about Buster Posey working his way through the ranks. Buster Posey had become Mr. Giant. And suddenly he is the guy that when they wanted to make a switch up at GM, they handed him the reins. So I don't necessarily think that this is not the end of it, but I think it just shows how teams are willing to go in more unconventional ways, and the ways that you can get to becoming a manager is so different than it was before. Because Joe Mann's right. In the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, hell, the 2010s, you had to manage your way up through the ranks. You were started as fielding as a ball boy or something, you're running, doing the dirty work, the things no one else wants to do. And then you're working your way up the minors, and all of a sudden you're a bench coach. And a big example, I know people love him in Baltimore, is Buck Britton. That was a guy who started coaching at the lower levels and then just as the years went on, worked his way up. So I think, that was kind of that's how it's supposed to be done. We kind of got that engraved in our minds of like, oh, you can't be a good manager if you didn't go through all that. Guy like Stephen Vogt is proving that wrong, that like, hey, if you're a great baseball mind, if you understand the game, you don't have to go through all the dirty work. Some of the best managers out there maybe are fresh off the game, or maybe they're in college, or, anywhere in between.
Yeah. And this is the beauty of how this is. Winning's going to dictate in sports. You win and you create a culture, and the culture leads to the results, and it builds something for the future. That's all that's going to matter here at the end of the day. But I am curious to see. But Joe Maddon, especially a guy that had so much success that he did have, and a big thing that he what essentially that he's also saying is that his experience in pro ball, how his managerial career turned out, was a testament to the experiences he had in pro ball. So we'll see what happens here. Exciting to say the least. That's how we opened up this show. And if you guys are new to our program, hit that like and subscribe button. We are live on YouTube, X, and Facebook. We're streaming live on the vertical and horizontal on YouTube. Appreciate you guys and appreciate our channel members here. You guys got to see how we got the rundown going before the show, that Joe Maddon clip. We actually just saw that right before we hopped on, and we're like, hey, whammy, we're going to talk about that. But if you want to be a channel member and see behind the scenes, click that join button. Again, it helps us help you. It goes right back into giving you more content here on the Ryan Ripken Show and the Ryan Ripken Media channel. Woo! How about that, Zach? I think Ollie disappeared. I don't think he wants to play with the green ball anymore.
No, I don't think he agreed with what Joe Maddon was saying. You know, he clearly
he was upset.
Yeah,
young pup.
Young pup. He wants the young bucks to get some run there. But let's move on. We have a clip from I think we go the John Heyman route, because as you know, the stove heats up, and before I think, you know, after this maybe we can get into some more free agent stuff, end out with Clase before Tim comes on. But you know, we talked about this right before. Things are heating up here, and especially I see people in the chat talking about starting pitching. So, you know, John Heyman was asked about certain starting pitchers because, hey, don't know if you noticed, Ryan, but you need starting pitchers. And not only that, you need a lot of good ones, because you're going to go through a lot in over 162 games. So let's listen to John Heyman kind of talk about maybe what the market is like and some names out there, and then we'll react on the other side.
Free agent notable starters. What do we know? We don't know much. We don't know landing spots, right?
No, it's
But what do we
early
know early November?
Well, it appears that Emi will be posted, and that's a big one. This is a guy who was a 2.1 ERA over the last 4 years, throws 99. Not the splitter, but the slider with a fastball. He joins that top three group, I believe, with Cease and Valdez. Valdez been very, very consistent over his career. I mean, the biggest winner, tied with Max Fried this decade. Cease, so talented and so durable. Those are the top three guys, but I don't think it's a bad market. People are complaining. Obviously, we don't have a Snell, we don't have a Fried, we don't have a Burns, maybe, but we have some depth. Certainly, King is a good pitcher. We have Ranger Suarez, Gallen, Imanaga now, Giolito, Woodruff, Bassett, Verlander, Scherzer. So it's a pretty good list of starting pitchers. I think it's fairly deep. Don't really have that true number one at the top, but potential number ones with Emi, Cease, if you could figure out the consistency. Obviously, Valdez is an excellent pitcher as well.
Were you surprised Shota Imanaga became a free agent? We were. We reported it live on Hot Stove, and we thought, wow, we weren't expecting that at that time.
Yeah, I got to admit, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I thought 3 for 57 was very reasonable for a guy who's done what he's done. Had an ERA under 4 this year, 9-8 record. It was just that last year where he had 20-something innings with 10 home runs. Wasn't getting the splitter. I mean, 1 month seemed to do it, but right now he's in a little bit different situation. He's got the qualifying offer. May take it. I'm not sure if he will. I know he likes Chicago. I believe they like him. They just felt that 57 was a little high considering that last month.
So a lot to dive into there.
Yeah.
And right now on the YouTube side of the stream here, I put up a poll, Zach, and was asking where will Framber Valdez end up. Had the options of New York teams, another big market like Philly, LA, etc., Orioles, or somewhere else currently, because we got a lot of people from Maryland or who like the Birds. They're clinging to that 42% in Baltimore, and somewhere else is actually in second on this poll. But the bigger conversation here, Zach, whether you're talking about with Baltimore, you're talking about any team, the starting pitching, as far as the elites, there's not many. And then there's some that could be elite, but the range of outcomes is pretty wide. And that's what we heard with Dylan Cease being one of those guys. You know, quite frankly, Framber probably is at the cream of the crop there, given his run over the years. Now, obviously, there was frustrations last year with the catcher. And, hey, I'm mad. Oh, I'm going to throw you a curveball whammy. That's a heater right at your chest. That didn't sit well with people.
And I don't think that sat well with a lot of people outside of Houston either, because it's so funny. Every time you bring up Framber Valdez, you see comments and all of that about people didn't forget. Like, that was a pretty national story and a pretty big deal for a pitcher to pretty much intentionally cross up your catcher to kind of get back for a bad pitch that you threw. Not someone that, you know, I think personally fits in Baltimore. It sucks because I was so in on, I thought it was the first, you know, the perfect kind of storm of him, that reliable starter. He eats up a ton of innings because the talent is there. The question is not at all the talent. He is, when you talk about the top guys there, and especially consistency, because that's the biggest thing. Consistency. That's what Valdez has been. And when you look at the other guys, you know, Imai coming over from Japan, that's a question mark. He's done it over in Japan, but can he do it over here? Okay, Dylan Cease, 2 years ago, probably gets the top contract on the market. Inconsistent this year, to say the least. Now there's the question mark there. Okay, Zach Gallen, question mark there. Looked awful, I'll say it. Awful to start the year, then turned it back on. And you're like, okay, which Zach Gallen are we paying this money to? So the top end guys, you know, it felt like it was Framber because of consistency and what he's done. But now because of that, is that going to hold a team back from pursuing him? Is there going to be, because I'm telling you right now, if a team is handing Framber Valdez $200 million, $150 million, or whatever it is, they are going to want to know what happened in Houston. They are going to want to know from people what the locker room was like. Was there an issue? Was this a one-off thing? And people are like, hey, that happened. It was a weird thing, but that's not like him. Or is it something where it's like, hey, you know, this was something that was boiling up for a long time. They're going to get to the bottom of it, especially when you're making that type of investment. You're going to want to know what happens. For me, you know, it really feels like it's just this offseason. It's going to be a year of who is going to take the bigger risks, you know. And then they talked Emannuel at the end, kind of a very late addition that no one saw coming, you know, especially when you talk about consistency. So I think this is a very, very good free agency starting pitching class, but it's going to be identifying which ones can be consistent. That's going to, you know, get the most out of them.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to be very vindicated with your choice. And so right now, why we started with Framber, because that is right now, if we were going to project, in my mind, he probably gets the biggest contract, because whether or not you like what he did in that circumstance, someone will pay if they believe they can help you win. So right now on Spot Track, I pulled this up a little. Hey, how you doing? Should I share my screen a little bit? I don't know how it's going to work on all these platforms. We're going to find out, though. How's it look right now?
Yeah.
I know it looks weird on the vertical, but hey, you know what? We're going to deal with it. Right now, when you're looking at this, Kyle Tucker is going to be that prize position player, okay? Framber Valdez right now is looking at the bigger contract. Now, the market value, I don't like to necessarily look at that, because we know teams will overpay that margin. So $33 million right now is the average value for Framber. That could be accurate, but I could see a team trying to push the envelope into the 200s if they really want him. And when you roll down here, you're seeing position players, but then the next one on the list, Zach, like Ranger Suarez and Cease are two very different pitchers, where Cease is the upside guy, and Ranger Suarez actually, to me, is the safer one.
Yeah,
because
that's the guy I want.
Because he knows how to pitch. And not saying Dylan, I want to take that back. Dylan Cease knows how to pitch. Ranger Suarez, though, because he doesn't have that like elite stuff where it's 98, he has to be able to know how to control his pitches and set guys up, which he's done tremendously well. So Ranger's a guy I think people will circle. But then if you go down the rest of the list here, you got Michael King, you got Giolito, bullpen guy, Robert Suarez, I'm very fascinated with. But as we go down this list, right, you're wondering, well, what are these contracts going to be? You know, and Imai, that's one now coming from Japan. What's the value going to be there, Zach? You know, what's going to happen there on top of all this? So if you're and right there, I mean, it looks like his posting windows, opened and teams will have 45 days to work something out. I mean, the dude's striking out more than one batter per inning. 1.92 ERA is fantastic. There's still a huge, obviously, gap from going from, Japan to the big leagues. But we've seen arguably the most clutch pitcher right now, at least to how people feel, is Yamamoto, and he was dominant this year overall. So unlike last year, though, Zach, and I see some comments, like I don't know if this pitching class is so strong for star power, but it's got good value.
Yeah.
The problem is going to be is what is the value to your team? And if I'm looking at the Orioles, I don't know if I want to take the risk on a guy that could or couldn't be good, unless you're a Zach Gallen guy, Bali, and you're like, you know what, I'm buying his stuff, which I love Gallen. I think that like he's the guy that I would buy. You got to be very, very certain that it's going to work out. Because if it doesn't, you're going to be in a very tough position. That's why the Ranger Suarez, to me, I think is the safest pick behind Valdez, because you know what you're going to get. And I'd be shocked if they don't pitch well.
Yeah. So, just kind of going over last year's class, so many people want to talk about like, it's not last year's class. It's not last year's class. Last year's class was big three and then a drop of all drop-offs. It was Blake Snell, Corbin Burns, Max Fried. If you didn't get one of those big three, you weren't really feeling great. You didn't have a quote-unquote number one after that. The best guy after that, it was Nathan Eovaldi, who, I mean, everyone it felt like wanted, but you go past that, none of these names, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, Yosei Kikuchi, Nick Martinez, Walker Buehler, Jack Flaherty, Frankie Montas, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Charlie Morton. That's from best, most money given to least. And that's right after Fried, Burns, and Snell. So the drop-off was massive there. But then you look at this 2026, team or group, and you just have so many guys. You have Valdez, you have Ranger Suarez, you have Dylan Cease, Michael King, Zach Gallen, Shota Imanaga, Merrill Kelly is a guy that I think doesn't get enough talk about. I think, yes, because he's older. He's been very, very solid. Imai now. So I think there's not that automatic three where you knew if you were signing Snell, Fried, or Burns, you knew what you were getting. You knew we're getting a number one. There's some risk now in these guys, but I think the depth and overall, I think there is more. The talent pool is deeper. And if you are a team like the Baltimore Orioles, where you weren't going to really compete with those top three, money-wise, because they obviously, Corbin wanted to go home. You weren't given the extra years to Max Fried, and then Blake Snell wanted to go to LA. It feels like this is more of a market for a team like the Orioles to have success in.
Yeah. And I'll still say a guy that's fallen under the radar in this depth piece, a guy like Zach Littell, who got traded from the Rays to the Reds. That's not a sexy move, but it's a really good move for a team that gets him. Like when I look at that, that's a depth piece there. The other pieces essentially are just going to be, how do you feel about this guy moving forward? And that's why I think, Zach, that the trade market for starting pitchers is actually going to be hot this offseason? Because there are going to be teams that are maybe trying to flip a contract, or they're trying to get younger, or whatever their team needs. Like, I would not be shocked. And I actually expect that there's going to be trades that are going to be lined up here as we get closer. But the one thing that I think all people are wondering, who's going to spend big money. The Dodgers will be back in it. The New York teams are going to make their imprint on a move. It's just going to be around a team like Baltimore. Are you going to put your chips in for one of those guys? And the reason why, like, I'm not trying to have word salad, I just honestly can't give it like a definitive response. Like, I would think a Mitch Keller would be more appealing because of team control with upside, more so than signing a Dylan Cease, who also is a Boris guy, by the way, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So there's a lot of factors there that we can talk about and get into there. And it's a fascinating conversation. And right now for the poll, by the way, for those with Framber, the poll again was, where will Framber Valdez end up? 38% are saying Baltimore is gonna put out the dough for him, but 26% are saying somewhere else, meaning he doesn't end up at a big market team. And there's some reports out there, Zach. The one thing actually was that clip that we had with Ken Rosenthal on I guess fair territory or foul territory, however it was going to be looked at, was him saying that teams like the Marlins and the Pirates were going to be aggressive in free agency. I still have a hard time believing that, but I do wonder if a team like the Pirates would actually be willing to finally say, hey, we need some young offensive talent. We'll do it. We'll give you one of our pitchers, not Skeens. He ain't going anywhere.
Skeens ain't going anywhere.
He ain't going anywhere. And you know what? Another name, since we talked trade, Zach, so I'll finish the thought with the Pirates. So the Pirates, though, like, Mitch Keller is one of those pieces if they want to give him up. They have him. They have Jared Jones, and their number one pitching prospect. Why am I blanking on his name? They got
Chandler.
Yeah, Chandler. So they got dudes over there, which, again, you got a great pitching staff. You're going to be in a lot of games, but the Pirates have desperately needed offense. So I would, if you find the right packaging, you have 4 of those guys. Those are really good options. You can trade one of those off. Now, one other pitching name that I saw a comment on earlier, and he arguably is the best pitcher in baseball, that's Tarek Skubal. Mr. Skubal. Apparently they're saying, oh, I could see him getting traded. Then the Tigers are saying, we actually want to re-sign him. If I'm Detroit and you want to splurge, yeah, you better splurge on extending your guy, because that is the one player. He would be the biggest chip, but I don't know if anyone could afford him, Zach.
Yeah, and personally, like, we want to talk about the Dodgers are ruining baseball, all this crap. If the Detroit Tigers trade away Tarek Skubal because they don't want to pay him, that's what's ruining baseball. Because these guys, these young, these superstars that Tarek Skubal has said openly, I want to stay in Detroit. So what does Detroit do? Make him the highest paid pitcher. Why? Because that's probably what he is. He is the best pitcher. He is, you can maybe argue Skeens. I personally put Yamamoto up there. That's it. Like, if you want to argue past 3, I stop listening. I don't think there's any argument saying that Tarek Skubal is not a top 3 pitcher. You need to keep that, and especially for the Tigers. I know it didn't end great at the end of last year, and oh boy, was it tough to watch towards the end. But this is a generational. This is a once in every 20 years type pitcher that you get through your farm system. He wasn't his top prospect. One of my favorite things is, I believe it was like 2018, 2019, the names that were above him in the Tigers prospect rankings. He was like 24th. Like, this was not a guy who was supposed to be the best pitcher in baseball. So when you get that guy, you have to keep him, especially for a market like Detroit. You have to keep these guys. So I've said it before, unless a team makes you an offer that you physically become uncomfortable reading out loud because you're like, there's no way they just offered us that's one thing. But if you're trading him because you want to trade him because you don't want to pay him, that is what's wrong with baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the Tigers too, you're so damn close.
Yeah,
you were. I mean, this year they were.
This isn't the Pirates, a rebuilding team.
No, I mean the Tigers
right there.
They were the best team in the American League until you want to talk about completely crapping down your leg, just to poo down your leg. But they still got in and they beat the Guardians in the wild card round, which is the part. And then they are one game away from being in the ALCS. They're one inning away, one swing away from being in the ALCS. So you're there. You're right there. You trade away Scooble. What are you trying to get closer to? You're going to take more steps back. Yeah, if you get pieces, great, and you're going to say we're going to be better for the future. If your goal is to win now with the team that you have, and they got a good bullpen out there, AJ Hinch is a great manager. That's you have what you need. You lose him, I don't think the Tigers are even back in the discussion of being a team that's going to contend for a World Series. I don't care what the return is at that point in time. So, but whoever would get Scooble would be probably a favorite. And I doubt, again, I just don't see it happening. I think it's just too much to make it happen. But it is a fascinating conversation. And honestly, I'm seeing some comments, and from one of our channel members here, I see would the Phillies trade Andrew Painter, another guy, high prospect for the Phillies? No. If I'm the Phillies and you're in this influx and you have veteran talent and you're in win now, I'm not going to trade away a pitcher that I think can be an ace, because you're going to count on them. And look what Trey Savage just did for the Blue Jays. If you think you have a guy in-house, you don't give him up. But would be interesting to me, and I saw MLB Network floating these ideas around, Zach, about could catchers be traded? Like, could Adley Rutschman in Baltimore? Adley ain't getting traded. I want to just, we're going to debunk that. My jaw would be on the floor if Adley
especially
got
with Albernaz. Albernaz is, he's this catching specialist. He
ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, no, I think that this is. I don't think that Albernaz. I think he would put his fist down and be like, absolutely not. We're trading our centerpiece catcher. Like, I get Basayo, but Basayo to me is a catcher /DH/first. I don't think he is the quote unquote catcher of the future. I think he is your 4-hitter of the future for the foreseeable future. He is a star batter, but I'm not necessarily sure he's got a specific position at catcher where you're like, shit, if we don't get rid of Adley, Sam's not going to play. Samuel's going to find a way to play no matter what. His talent is too good. It's a good problem to have when you have a lot of talented players. So, no, I agree. I would be floored. I would be floored if they got rid of Adley Rutschman, because I think people forget he got, I believe it was, he got top 5 votes in his rookie year for MVP. Like, this guy, I get it. He hasn't been healthy recently, but let's not pretend like Adley Rutschman at his best hasn't been one of the glue pieces. I always say it. They're not the superstars. They aren't Gunnar, who can win a game by himself. But when you talk about guys, when they're going right, Westy and Adley change the entire lineup.
Mm-hmm. They really do. They really, really do. And overall, people got to remember this at the end of the day. The talent's not gone with Adley Rutschman. The biggest issue for him over the last 2 years has physically been not on the field. He stayed and battled in 2024, but mentally he was in a bad spot. Physically, it looked like in June he was turning it around, Zach. He looked like that Adley in June, where here he is, he's getting hot, and all of a sudden, whammy, he's down, right? So he needs to physically be on the field. And if he's on the field, he's going to have success. I really do believe that component of it. Now, Zach, I just put into the chat can you still hear me and see me okay?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you.
Cool. I don't know how I'm trying to learn how to do this better and better. But I put a Q&A as what is your MLB offseason hot stove thought or question? So for our channel members, want to open that up to you guys or any super chats that we can talk about, because we got a long show ahead of you guys. And if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Tim Kurkjian will join us in the second hour of the show to talk ball, talk about what's going on. But we wanted to be able to hear more of your opinion. So I'm trying to figure out how to do these live chats, Zach. I don't know if I did it right for the Q&A. I don't know.
I don't
You know how to do it?
Nope. No clue.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, that's great then. One of the conversations that we've seen a lot, though, is, where do some of these high profile outfielders go? Where do these position players go? And we'll get to all that in just a second, but I do want to shout out one of our sponsors and partners here, Merit Clubs, by the way. And you guys know they've been a huge part of helping us grow, and we've appreciated everything with them. And if you're looking this holiday season to get back on track or join a great community, well, Merit Clubs is offering a early Black Friday sale, $1 enrollment. And also they're offering a 3-day free pass if you just wanted to try that. A 3-day free trial, free pass. You go to meritclubs.com to look at it. I'm actually going to pull that up real quickly, Zach, so I can, let's see, over and under. It's always the under.
Always under.
Always take the under. There it is right there. Free trial. Hey, how you doing? 3-day free trial pass to test it all out there. And how do you spell free and/or $1 early enrollment?
MERRITT. Easy.
When I move, you move.
Just like that.
Just like that. All right. So the position player side, because I know this is a talking point for a lot of people here, not just with the Baltimore Orioles, but just in general. And we looked at that spot track. I might pull that back up for all positions that are free agents or some of the big names. Let me pull that up. So we got the Kyle Tuckers, the Cody Bellingers, Pete Alonso, Bregman, Schwarber. About Bo Bichette. I think that's an interesting one, Zach, because don't we have a little bit of a tidbit to talk about right there? There it is.
Yes,
and Zach, what's that say from John Morosi?
Yeah, John Morosi reporting that can confirm Bo Bichette has received interest from multiple teams who view him as a second baseman or third baseman due to the presence of an established shortstop on those rosters. Further evidence that the World Series augmented his value in the marketplace. For those of you who do not remember, Bo Bichette came back to rejoin the Blue Jays from injury in the World Series, and the Blue Jays said, hey, still dealing with some injury. Range isn't as great. We have Andres Jimenez, who is a fantastic fielder. We're going to put Bo at second. Played flawlessly. He looked like Bo Bichette. I don't think this is a shot at, Bo's not a good fielder or shortstop. But as he said, this does not eliminate teams that maybe you look at and go, but they have a shortstop. Looks like that may not matter. Obviously, money talks, situations talk, but looks like we might be seeing Bo Bichette elsewhere and maybe not as a primary shortstop.
I think that actually is a very likely scenario given the injury history with the knee now. And again, not that he's going to come back and he'll be fine, but when you're profiling for a team and you're looking for a premier bat, now Bo Bichette obviously wants to play shortstop because of the value, but for teams that are looking at, maybe we'll spend a little bit more and move him over because Bo Bichette as a hitter, it's undeniable his talents. He was their best RBI guy on the Blue Jays. He was just their overall best hitter, and he missed the stretch run. I mean, hell, he would have been up in the rafters and in Blue Jays history if they won Game 7 with that 3-run jack he hit off of Ohtani. The dude's a big-time player. And I do think, Zach, Bo Bichette, especially if he gets the money he wants and you can join a team that you think you can win, I would keep that option open. Now, could a reunion with the Jays happen? Yeah, it could. He loves being there. He loves playing with Vlad Guerrero Jr. It's familiar. I think the Blue Jays are going to still be tough. I'm not going to expect them to make the run that they did this year by any means, but they still should be in a good position. But it makes you wonder if he's willing to go to second or third, how many more teams are in on him? Yeah. Like it would become a bidding war. And if I'm curious for your sake, Bo Bichette or Alex Bregman, who would you rather want? Because that'd be the similar conversation that you're going to have. Alex Bregman is going to be a guy that's been around more, a little bit more seasoned, but obviously his defensive prowess at third base.
Yeah. I think the defense, especially if we're looking at third, meaning a team wants to use him as a third baseman. Personally, I will say I love Alex Bregman. I think he is a superstar. I think last season it was so funny as his market kind of unfolded, where it kind of felt like maybe teams and people were kind of underrating how good he is. I mean, even at 31, he's going to get a massive contract. It is very, very close, but I'm solely probably because of fielding. If you want to go age, obviously Bo Bichette being 27 is going to probably give you more long-term, but it depends on what you're looking for. I love the power of Alex Bregman. Obviously Bo Bichette, we saw in Game 7, he's got pop, but he's more of a average guy going to compete for the batting title every year. So two superstars, though, nonetheless, that if it does, mean that Bo Bichette is maybe competing at third base in the market, that could maybe benefit both players as teams have to bid and kind of go up.
Mm-hmm. And, shout out Brooks. He just sent me a little bit more of I guess it was for Fangraphs of using a better approach to looking at free agent tracker. A little, hey, how you doing? Not all that doesn't go unnoticed here, Brooks. Right there, if you look at it, you can see that, Zach.
Yeah, we can see it.
So right now can I zoom? Does the zoom help?
Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Oh, boom. So the one that's got the big bop, when you look at all this, you're looking at Schwarber. But when you're looking at the infielders, like Bo Bichette is fascinating being 28 years old compared to Bregman, who's 32, but you know what you get with Bregman. But it's going to be to me, that's going to be a smaller contract than Bichette. Bichette should get more based off of just age.
Yeah.
But those are going to be the two guys. And then Suarez is interesting because he kind of still profiles as a power guy, but you could put him at DH. So really, when you're looking at that list, Gleyber Torres is going to be involved in this situation. But mainly, you're looking at Bo Bichette and Alex Bregman as guys that can be a help to you defensively as infielders with pop. The bigger question is going to go, what's going to happen in the outfield then? So the infielders, we know with those situations. Outfield, man. Cody Bellinger, Kyle Tucker, those are the premier guys that teams are going to want to take. And then it falls off because Schwarber is an outfielder, but he's not. He's a DH.
Kyle Schwarber ain't. I've seen things that I mean this wholeheartedly. I would be less surprised seeing Kyle Schwarber get time at catcher again, like he started his career, than going back in the outfield at this point, because he not the most fleet of foot at this point in his career, but you take that when he's hitting you 55, 56 homers a year. So
you kidding me in this economy?
Exactly. So this, I mean, I don't want to say it's a weaker class, but it feels like everyone plays the same positions. Obviously, Eugenio Suarez, Pete Alonso, yes, they're third base, first base, but those are two boppers. Bregman being your kind of quintessential third baseman. Bo Bichette, we now see, is going to be, where do they want him? We could be sitting here talking all day about him playing third and second, and then he signs with the team that needs a shortstop, so he's kind of that jack of all trades right now if you're looking to move him into the, equation. But Ryan, for you, let's talk about with Bo Bichette, because I know people in the comments are, mostly Oriole fans. And, if you're not, hit that like and subscribe button if you're new. Bo Bichette, a guy like him in Baltimore, do you see it happening? Could that be a fit? And then the biggest question is, who would you move?
Ooh, look at you throwing the questions around, Bali. I love Bo Bichette as a hitter. Yeah. I think wherever he goes, it would be such a boost to an offense. Would I want him in Baltimore? Absolutely, I would. I don't see the Orioles making a move for Bo Bichette. I don't see them moving a Jackson Holiday or Jordan Westburg to the outfield, because that's what it would require. It's either you move a guy to the outfield or you move them. And I don't see that happening either. So if that's the case, your infield is set, at least in the middle. You got Jackson at third base of Westburg. Westburg, Gunnar, all-stars. Jackson Holiday.
Oh, Rip, I think we lost you for a second.
You coming back on? You there, Zach?
Yep, I'm back. You're back.
Cool. So Jackson has the potential to be an all-star, and you're invested in a young player. If you make the move for Bo, you better have another plan. Because Bo, if you plug in right now, it's no knock to anything with Jackson. Bo, if you expect him to be that hitter, he would be an upgrade over what Jackson as a hitter. Upside for Jackson for his career, I'm buying the younger, talented Jackson Holiday, because I'm a big believer in his pedigree, his ability. It's going to take time. Man, dude, I would hate to see. I really think, and I hate to say this, I got to look at the lineup, but Bo Bichette going to a team like the Red Sox would scare the hell out of me, because I think it would fit so damn well with him playing in Boston.
Would you, okay, now real fast, if you're the Red Sox, Bo or bring back Bregman?
Oh gosh. How much are you willing to spend? Would you bring back both?
If you do that, I'm not going to lie. You throw the Yankees. The Yankees wouldn't scare me at all. I would be like, it's the Red Sox division, and probably the Red Sox, they probably go to the World Series at that point.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I look at with the Yankees, and this is where I'm looking at with Bo. It's like, I think he goes to a big market or he goes back to Toronto. But when I'm looking at the big markets that make sense, it does make sense in the AL East. Like, it truly does. I don't see the teams in the Central giving out cash for him. If you go to the AL West, the Rangers have Simeon and Seager. You have a third baseman over there, and
Josh Young.
But Josh Young, who's the other one? There's another one that was that Young lost his position to. I'm blanking on it, but my point is, National League then does a big market team over there pay out for him? Maybe, but teams that desperately need bats, the Yankees are number one.
You're thinking of Josh Smith.
Josh Smith, yep. So it is Bo Bichette would fit really well in Baltimore. I just don't see it, Zach. I don't see how you do this, especially if you're committed to the young core. If I'm Boston, though, and you're looking for a second baseman, I would overpay for Bichette. I would.
Yeah. And that's going to be, because then Boston, if we're talking about them, obviously all of a sudden, a Marcelo Meyer becomes expendable there if they get Bichette and the Bregman, or so then
if they move him to third, right? If you move Bo to third, then you're fine. Man, dude, I am so such a Bo believer when it comes to him swinging the bat. I honestly think he's one of the most underrated hitters in baseball, because he was hurt this year, but he was quietly one of the best hitters, and no one really was talking about him, at least I thought.
Yeah, and actually that's a good segue because we want to talk about underrated players that are maybe some of the best in the league, and this is moving more towards the trade market, but rumors now coming out that, the Diamondbacks are motivated in moving Ketel Marte. We saw this at the deadline. All of a sudden, we know the Diamondbacks were selling off all the goods, and that was a name that got thrown around a lot. And Ketel Marte, this is a guy that it does not matter. It feels like year in, year out. 23 at an 8.43 OPS, 24 he had a 9.32. This past season, 25 he had an 8.93. Batting 280, 276, 292, and 283 going down the list. This was a guy who just gets the job done. One of the best hitters that doesn't get talked about, maybe because of his career path, being in Arizona, being in Seattle. He was never on that big market team, producing MVP caliber numbers, because this guy who's in the MVP conversation now. It's Shohei's to lose every year, and they eventually took a big gap. But a Ketel Marte, it's interesting because I could also see him maybe winding up in a place like a New York. I don't know, maybe if Boston would trade for a guy with their young, prospects, but Boston has a hell of a farm system as well. This is another guy that I think, could really put a team over the top, because you add a bat like this to your lineup, that's pretty damn good.
He is, and I wonder for Marte, is he a guy that can move around? Would he be willing to go to the outfield and be more flexible, right?
Because I believe he's played 170 games in center field in his career, so he's played there.
Right. So, in my mind, that's an interesting part right there. I think the other part that's a little bit that's going under the radar is you got to find guys that are going to fit your clubhouse and locker room. And there was that the fact that the Diamondbacks want to get rid of Marte. You don't
it
love
hasn't
that.
It hasn't always been because of talent, at least from what we've heard.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a very interesting discussion overall when you're talking about what's going to happen here. But I think the bigger part when you're looking at teams, and I think it's important for teams to identify their weaknesses. So if you're going around the AL East, the weaknesses for the New York Yankees is not having anybody else with Aaron Judge. So you need to go and get some bats. The Red Sox, it's just adding more talent to a team that has a good infrastructure. Blue Jays, can you run it back with the group and try to, bring in Bo and maybe get some other guys, which they'll be players. The Orioles have a young, talented group, but there's a lot of uncertainty now given what happened. So guys that I expect to play well: Jordan Westburg when healthy, Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, and I hate to say it, Zach, those are the three. Those are the three if you were to say right now, because there's unpredictability with the rest. And I love the makeup that Colton Cowser has and possesses, but that's a question mark. Do you take the next step? Jackson Holliday, you love the upside, but how does he progress? That's a risk. So what do the Orioles need? They need a veteran bat. They need to go get a guy. Do you want to add another lefty bat in Cody Bellinger when you already have a pretty lefty dominant lineup? I don't know. Maybe you want to. And that's why I'm fixated with the Bo Bichette. I don't see how it would fit, but damn, he would be so good for that lineup. Above all, his approach with two strikes, his ability, the bat to ball skills, I think it fits perfectly. And I saw this comment actually, where did it go? Do. And Dorothy joined yesterday, by the way. Welcome to the membership here. Appreciate you. Saying I hope the O's are active with free agency, but can we also start signing our guys to extensions? Is it impossible because of Boris? Well, Gunner's a challenge, and I can tell you this.
Westy's
going to be a challenge because of all of that. And Boris wants the most, and I can say honestly, the Orioles are being aggressive with that. That's a hard task to climb. But the bigger part of it is outside of Gunnar and outside of Westberg right now, Zach, is there a guy that you can wholeheartedly feel that you're going to give money to that you feel is going to be there with you the rest of the way? And because it's part of it is, will a guy take a deal like Sam Basayo? I bet Colton Cowser would probably take some sort of younger, like a little extension.
Mhm.
Adley, you felt that way a couple of years ago. Do you feel the same way about it now on a business side? I believe in Adley, but
but then there's also the question of, as much as I keep saying, I don't think Basayo is just a catcher. Are your two extensions being guys whose primary positions at this moment are catchers? Is, when we talk about the business side, is that the route you want to go? I'm not sure. They're either the big name is everyone's going to talk about, and if we want to talk about just position players, because I've seen people say Bradish and Rogers, although Bradish is he's, I think, signed through 2030. So I don't think you need to work anything there long-term. Rogers is a free agent right after this season. That's an extension. I would love to see at least a 2-3 year extension there. But by the position players, the only one that I can look at and say that is going to be a superstar for the next 10 years, you can almost guarantee it, is Gunnar Henderson. And like we've said, I can guarantee the Orioles would love for Gunnar Henderson to agree to a contract right now, but I just, because of Boris, and say what you want, I can sit here and talk about how much I hate him because of the, how he deals and all of that. He is the best at his job of anyone, and he knows it. And players of that caliber go to him because they know it. He's going to get you the best offer. He's going to get you the most out of your situation. And one of his big MOs is he doesn't sign extensions early because he wants to get the most. And, that's what the Orioles are kind of fighting with right now.
Yeah, and I understand people's worries about, can Westy stay healthy, just with that conversation. But at the same time, when he's on the field, it's undeniable that he is your best offensive player behind Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah,
like that's not an if, that's a reality. The dude bangs at the plate. Yeah. He can hit. He is gritty. He's everything you want for a guy that's playing the third base position as well. And he's versatile too. And now he's going to have to stay healthy. But the reason with this, Zach, is there's no doubt if he's healthy, what player you're getting. And that's the bigger part I want to talk about. But if we want to flip to the other side about extensions, I would even look more of how you do extend. And I saw a comment here from VT Raven or Bradish and Rogers. Now Bradish is going to have a little bit more time. Rogers is going to have to become a priority, and I would honestly be looking to lock him up. If what you saw last year is in some way can be replicated, in if he's half of what he was last year.
That's what I said. If you double his ERA, I think if you double his ERA, he's still in the top 5 in Major League Baseball. That's how good he was.
That dude was shoving. So for the Orioles, that's a move you want to look at here. If you're looking at extending the pitching side, I think is going to be a very interesting piece to look at. And quite frankly, then Zach, you need to find a veteran bat, whether you're going to trade for one or whatever the opportunity is going to be. And I think we're going to find out also on a different note of what they're going to do with Ryan Mountcastle. That would free up an idea space of at bats. So really curious how that will all be. But I do think for the O's, I think they go and land one or two big arms out of the pen. I really do. And I would be aggressive there. And not, I think the bullpen can be one of your easiest parts to build because guys can come out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. High leverage guys are hard to find. That is something that you do need. And you don't want to mess around with that. So I would expect the Orioles to be more aggressive there. I as much as the offensive struggles and the question marks around philosophy are going to be, if you don't have the pitching depth this year, you're going to be screwed. I don't care how inconsistent your offense is going to be, you need the depth. And I think they're going to get 4 arms. I feel like they're going to get 3 or 4 starting pitching options that are varieties. They're going to get 1 or 2 leverage guys in the pen.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they brought back Kittredge, by the way.
Yeah, which I
like
still
they traded.
love.
Say, hey, dude, we need a guy like you because you know how to pitch in these moments. Great, you're coming back. That's important. So I think it's very interesting to see.
Yeah, and then kind of the last little rumor we'll talk about with the free agency is because actually the Athletic said 2 different organizations have suggested maybe the Orioles are an under the radar team involving a certain superstar. So Kyle Tucker, the quote unquote crown jewel of the free agency class. I mean, it starts with him. It feels like he is going to be, at least for the top teams, he's going to be the first domino to fall. They are going to have all their resources on him, and then they will go elsewhere after his decision is made. But just looks like he could be commanding $400 million plus, and that's over 10 to 12 years. But off the rip, what are we thinking about this? We talked about another, lefty. But what are your thoughts?
I really am curious of what the money amount's going to be.
It's going to be more than he's worth.
Oh my goodness! I mean, again, the great thing is if you're a lefty hitter, and I know there's a lot of lefties already for the O's, but if you're a lefty hitter and you come to Baltimore, it's a great place to come hit. That would be a big signing. I don't know in the priority list if they're going to go with that option.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that, but I mean, what's his projected contract going to be? I had it up
400. It was 10 years, 401. Yeah.
And then you got to ask yourself,
I don't see that happen.
Would you rather 10 years, 401, or do you want to try to find a way to sign Gunnar to a $600 million extension?
Yeah. And that's unfortunately what it comes down to is, the Orioles aren't made of money. They can't be like the Dodgers or the Yankees who are like, okay, we'll eat this money now. And if it's a bad contract at the end of it, we'll just eat that and we'll still be able to make, signings, big signings. This would probably be the Orioles' big signing for the next 5 years. And I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll get outbid. I think other teams are going to be much more interested. The only connection I can think is that Mike Elias was part of the group that drafted Kyle Tucker in Houston in 2015. But besides that, I don't see it. I just don't see really a path that Kyle Tucker ends up in Baltimore.
No, I don't either. And again, we're looking at these pitching contracts. It's interesting. They're far less than when you give out for these position players. So if I was Baltimore, I'd much rather invest in too high. I'd much rather take a risk on Cease and Suarez or Gallen or whoever it may be than put all my eggs in one basket on a position player when you still got to deal with some in-house. That's my first thought. So except a guy like Schwarber, which again, Schwarber still won't cost as much. It's still going to cost a lot. And if I'm Philly, that dude can't leave Philly. Like that dude means too much to a team. And I don't think that I would move Philly way down in my rankings and thoughts of if they could win next year, because I think that's how impactful he is to that team. He's the heart and soul of that team, in my opinion. So Schwarber would be great. And he'd maybe 3 years, 150. Or not 3 years, 130, something like that, whatever it would be, 4 years. That dude's going to hit. The dude's going to hit jacks. But I still think the value right there would be going for 2 big arms over a outfielder. And that's how I see it. And the other part is the Orioles would have to commit to Schwarber DHing, and the Orioles have been notorious for saying we're going to use that spot as a revolving door. Yeah. And if you want Sam Basayo to get more at bats and Adley to stay in the lineup,
you can't
then you can't spend that money on a DH.
Yeah, and okay, now we've had it talked about. I feel like for years it's been talked about. Oh, can Adley play first as well? Okay, so now are Adley and Basayo your both first baseman / catchers? Okay, so now what are we doing with Mayo and Mountcastle? Before it was one or the other. Now it's both, because now when Adley's not catching, he has to be DHing, or he has to be playing first, because you want all three of Basayo, Adley, and Schwarber now in the lineup. Very few teams can commit to the full-time DH, and we saw it. Ryan, how rough was it for the Yankees last year when Judge was hurt? He came back and they were like, hey, he has to DH. So they were putting Giancarlo Stanton out in the outfield. And that was tough to watch at times, but they had to, because they wanted all of them in the lineup at once. And, it costs you defensively in a big way.
It does. And, the Orioles focus this year, and I do mean this, and this is why I know people are wondering how that brand of baseball would happen. The Orioles, unlike the other teams in the AL East, they have a collection of young talent that, if developed and enhanced the right way, gives you an upper advantage. But the problem is, what's going to be the growing pains? And if Craig Albernaz comes in and the organization philosophically shifts some things and they take that step, the O's will be very good next year, regardless of who comes in or doesn't. But if they don't, it can be an uphill battle. So do you want to take that risk? And teams like that in New York, yeah, they've found a way. They know their formula. They got some big boppers, big arms. Cole will be back, but they have
bearded Cole.
Bearded Cole. How about that?
Yeah.
But they also, dude, you got the best hitter on the planet, or if you want to say he's not an Aaron Judge and he's saying he's the second best, I don't care, first or second.
Yeah.
Dude's a beast.
Go past then. Doesn't go past there.
That dude gives you some insurance that you can get away with some things. If they add a guy or two, Yankees know how to win. Boston, they added Crochet. They got a good young nucleus. Cora's the manager, that that what's going to happen here. So yeah, I'm really, really curious on what it could all be, but it's going to be fascinating here. And I just would be shocked, Zach, if I don't see the O's be aggressive in certain ways. But I also do think that the biggest focus for them is but going back to playing better ball as a unit. There is a lot of talent on that team. There's a ton of talent. If Kyle Bradish is healthy and Trevor Rogers and Grayson Rodriguez, which you can't count on, but let's start with the first two. It's a really good 1-2 punch. Yeah. Dean Kramer then settling in as you're anywhere from 3 to 5. If Dean can eliminate the month of April, that's a pretty damn good arm.
And the first inning, month of April, and the first inning. I always say, and when it comes to Dean Kramer, and we can move on. And even his bad starts, it's 5 innings of good baseball, and then 1 inning where you go, Dean, what just happened there? And it's like, that's all it is. It's that if he can limit the big inning, he's the perfect 4 or 5. So before we finish up this part of the conversation, and then Tim Kurkjian joins us in just a few minutes, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Of all the free agents we talked about, we've talked about some big names, maybe even if you all go trademark it. If you had to say that's a guy, I think, I'm not going to say, plant your flag, but if there's a guy that we've talked about that you're like, that's the guy I think realistically ends up in Baltimore, who is it?
Realistically ends up in Baltimore?
Yeah.
Realistically, and what I think they should, because you need a sure thing. I would go aggressively at Ranger Suarez. I think that he's the guy. I think that you need surefire and knows how to pitch. I would lock in for him.
I had a feeling you were going to go Ranger, so I pulled up his percentiles. Yeah, and we talked about knowing how to pitch. 7th percentile in velo, 90.5 miles per hour. He's a guy that he knows how to pitch. And that, in my opinion makes him less risky because, you see so many of these power arms, and this ain't old school baseball where velos are dropping after certain ages as much. I mean, we still see guys in the upper 30s, blowing 98 by you, but being able to pitch, you don't have to worry about, oh, what if his velo goes down, mile per hour or two. He knows how to work with the velo he's got. We haven't talked about him today, but if I have to go on a guy that I've been screaming for, I think it just lines up too perfectly. It's the exact same trade you made 2 years ago. If the Brewers don't want to sign Freddie Peralta long-term and they want to move off him, I think he also fits what the Orioles would need.
He would. I think the only part I would think about is, would the Orioles feel like they have too many lefties and Rogers and Suarez kind of profiling similarly? But I still wouldn't worry about that. And I know people can look at this. You need guys that know what they're doing constantly, that you don't have to worry about what they can be. You know what they are.
Yeah.
And, another guy that's interesting to me, like Michael King's really interesting. Shada is very interesting to me as well. But if I'm going to take a choice between Shada and Shota, I'm sorry. Shota. Between Shota and Ranger, give me Ranger pitching in the NL East in a division there that has some good, especially with the Braves, but also they have been a top team, and they've been a top team with him there.
Yeah.
And I know you want the bigger name, but let me ask you, if where do you rank Kyle Bradish if he's healthy? Because I think that people have this perception that Kyle Bradish is not and I'm going to be bold here, Zach, but I truly believe this. Kyle Bradish, if he's healthy, is going to be a top 5 pitcher in the game in 2026. Like, you can bookmark that. If Kyle Bradish pitches the entire year in 2026, he will be a top 5 pitcher across all of baseball. He will be a Cy Young candidate. And if we're going to say in the AL, I would say Skubal in the AL. Garrett Cole's a beast. Kyle Bradish, to me, is right there. I would put him up there. I think he is that good. And I think people forgot how freaking good he was.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. I mean, 2023, over 30 games, a 2.83 ERA. In 2024, when he's pitching with half a UCL tied together with duct tape, has a 2.75 ERA in those 8 games. Okay, 2025, he's coming off Tommy John surgery. He's clearly going to take a step back, take some time to recover. No, a 2.53 over 6 games, 32 innings pitch. I mean, Kyle Bradish, when healthy, that is your ace. I mean, people can talk about, I still think they need a top end guy, still add in a guy like a Ranger Suarez. But at the end of the day, Kyle Bradish is and can be that ace, that number one, that we're going into the playoffs. And game 1, we know who's on the mound, and we feel pretty damn good that he's going to come out with a win.
Yeah, and I know people are worried about saying the when healthy. Kyle Bradish hasn't been this injury-prone pitcher, by the way, at least last year when it happened, or I guess going back to when Corbin Burns got traded to Baltimore. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kyle got hurt, and that's where the elbow issue started. And it was a ticking time bomb with his elbow. And they decided no surgery, you're going to rehab. But eventually it was not a matter of if he was going to have to get this elbow repaired. It was when. And before he went down officially, he was dealing. He looked tremendous. He looked like Cy Young caliber Kyle Bradish. Yeah. And his elbow just, that was the process. But everything else, Zach, that was it. So it's not like Grayson Rodriguez, which unfortunately it's been the shoulder, it's been the lat. That to me is more concerning than a guy like Kyle Bradish. It's like, hey, dude, your elbow's good. Because I gotta remind people, Kyle Bradish is my teammate in 2021. Mm-hmm. And when you watch a guy like Kyle, and I told you have this feeling, and you can watch guys where it just comes easy to them. His stuff is just so nasty. It's got that break. It's got that life on the fastball. And I've gotten to see a lot of great pitchers over time. Kyle Bradish is in that category. It was so simple. His stuff was so much more better. And Dean Kramer, we'll get Dino back on here, but Dino will tell you, he goes, yeah, it must be nice for Kyle. He can get away with even more because his stuff is just so much better than mine. Yeah. And he didn't mean that as I think Dean's a good pitcher. Just goes to show you that the peers of Kyle Bradish are recognizing his greatness. It's just that he hasn't been healthy enough to see it. So we can dive into all of that and a whole lot more here. But if you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Ripken Show. We do this live at 5 right now, Monday through Friday here. And we know we got a football brass, and we'll talk more football on different days. Today is solely baseball, and it's been a great baseball conversation. And then I know with our next guest coming up, safe to say he loves baseball. I don't know if there's anyone else that I know can tell stories and talk about just the pure love of baseball like this man. And Tim, when you're ready, just give me a thumbs up when you're ready to rock and roll. And we've had him on multiple times. I've been on with him and his son Jeff on their podcast, Great Game or What, which, by the way, if you want to talk about stories and a good time, you have to check it out, which I know majority of our audience is already listening. But let's bring on our friend, your friend, Tim Kurkjian. Tim.
How you doing, fellas?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Well, I finally come down from one of the greatest Octobers that I've ever been a part of. I was in the booth doing radio for 3 different rounds, and then at the World Series doing Baseball Tonight and writing. It might be the greatest postseason I've ever seen. I think it's the greatest World Series I've ever seen, and I've covered 44 of them. Game 7 might be the greatest Game 7 I've ever seen, and I've seen 26 Game 7s. I counted them in my life. It just shows you again, fellas, I don't care how corny this sounds, there is nothing better than baseball, and there is nothing close to being better than October baseball. That baseball was so good to watch. The storylines were everywhere. And even though it was a little uneven at times, and it was a little sloppy at times, and it was flawed at times, it just kept your attention. It was so interesting. It was so compelling, and it was so fun for basically a month.
You know, I wanted to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought it up. And again, you're the perfect guy to talk to about this because you have seen so much. And you just mentioned how this was one of the best postseasons you've ever seen. From the viewer from thousands of miles away, it felt that way watching it. I couldn't take my eyes off of it, Tim. But do you have maybe a moment of being there, whether it was from Game 7 or any part of this postseason, the behind the scenes of you either being on the field and maybe being in the crossfires down there, but any story that really resonates that can drive home that point?
Well, there are about 100 of them, but after Yamamoto, who was the MVP of the World Series, throws that absolute gem in Game 2 that gets them even, I'm walking across the field, and there's Clayton Kershaw, who's the best pitcher of this generation, better than Max Scherzer, better than Justin Verlander, who are also first ballot Hall of Famers. Please do not take that wrong. I'm just trying to tell you how great Clayton Kershaw was. So I just looked at him and I said, like, what was that? Like, here a guy who's 5'10", who throws a javelin before games, who does a stretching exercise that is painful to watch. He goes out with all the pressure of, we better win this game, otherwise we're in trouble. And he throws a second straight complete game in the postseason. So I just looked at the best pitcher of this era and said, what was that? And he goes, well, that was ridiculous. That's what Clayton Kershaw said. So but there were a million other moments, a million other storylines. This is so off the beaten track, but I go in the Blue Jays clubhouse during the ALDS, so it's early on. Ernie Clement is standing there with his glove. It's an old-looking glove, and I just casually said, is this your gamer? He goes, yeah. I said, wow. Anything behind that? And he goes, yeah, I bought this on eBay a year and a half ago. I bought it from a Japanese woman, Mizuno, on eBay, and now he wears it in the game. Now, he doesn't just wear it, Ryan. Zach, he is wearing it as a Gold Glove caliber second baseman and third baseman. And I think your dad, Ryan, would tell us there's a really big difference between second and third base, and he played them equally well defensively, and he got 30 hits in the postseason, most by any player in one postseason. And just another guy who doesn't even necessarily look like a great player. But at the batting cage or at Game 7, this is the discussions I have at the batting cage. Before Game 7, Davis Schneider tells me, Ernie, he could do anything. He's a great ping pong player. He's a great hockey player, shoots 65 in golf, and he's got 30 hits, and he's the best defensive player, one of the best defensive players in the league. These are the tiny little vignettes that I gathered through the whole month that I will never forget, because, it just is a time for people to come out and show everyone, look, I am really good. Ernie Clement did that. Yamamoto, we already knew, but he did that. And Vlad Guerrero did it too. So don't let anybody ever tell you that guy is just a big, heavy-set, unathletic first baseman. He can really play the position defensively. He can run way better than people think. He has great instincts for the game. I was so impressed with Vladdy Jr. after watching him for a month. And sometimes, fellas, you got to see a guy every day for 20 games to recognize how good he is.
Yeah. I'm laughing because everyone was going, wait, the Jays are going to give that much money to this player, which, they're like, Vlad's good, but is he that good? Is he worth that money? And Tim, I talked to Mark Shapiro before the season started, or right when it started. And he said, and without hesitating, he goes, Vlad will be the best position player in our franchise history, or he has the chance to be if he stays here. And we are going to try in every way to keep him here. And we know he wants to be here. And we know when the moment then is presented to him, we believe that Vlad's going to be the one to step up and make the plays. And he put on a show, Tim. He put on a show, to say the least. And
here's how good John Schneider is as a manager. One of the great connectors, one of the great communicators, former catcher, minor leaguer, had all these guys growing up. He goes to Vladdy like midway through the season, and he's got a bar graph with him that he put together himself. And he says, I got 3 guys here. This is how they run. This is their running speed, all that. It's Aaron Judge, it's Manny Machado, and it's Vlad Guerrero Jr. And Schneider says to Vladdy, which one of these is the fastest? Take a guess. And Vladdy goes, I don't know. So Schneider said, you are the fastest of those 3. Now, I don't know about you, but I would not have guessed that running speed-wise, Vladdy runs better than either one of those guys. But according to John Schneider, he does. And this is what you have to see when you see him every day, watching him score from second on a single. I'm not saying it was breathtaking speed. I'm just saying for a big, heavy-set guy, he runs way better than people think.
Hey, don't sleep on it, right? Don't sleep on that.
Yeah, and Tim, before we get maybe into the offseason, one question for you. Game 3, obviously, everyone talks about going 18 innings and, just how incredible that was. For you, what was it like, because watching at home, it was this like, oh my gosh moment when Yamamoto starts running out of the dugout and he's going to the bullpen and he never gets in. But after just throwing a complete game, this kid is like, no, I'll go try to, I don't want a position player. And what was it like? Have you ever seen something like that in all your years of covering baseball?
Yeah, I've seen it. I saw Madison Bumgarner do that. I saw Randy Johnson do that in 2001. And then, of course, we saw Yamamoto do it again in Game 7, where he actually got into the game. One day after throwing 96 pitches, he threw 34 pitches. I cannot believe he went out there for that long. I was pretty certain he was going to pitch one way or another in Game 7. I didn't think he was going to go 2 2/3 scoreless, finish the game with 34 pitches. A good reminder, fellas. Sorry to be the old man here, but our starting pitchers are capable of way more than we are giving them. And that kid said, our best shot to win the World Series is for me to finish this game. And the Dodgers used all 4 of their aces in Game 7. This reminded me of 2019 when the Nationals essentially said, we got 7 pitchers and we're going to pitch them every game if we have to, because that's our only chance to win the World Series. This was the Dodgers' only chance to win the World Series, was to use all those guys, especially Yamamoto, as often as they did. So yes, I've seen it before, and I've seen Game 3 before, 7 years ago at the same ballpark. But what that kid did cannot be underestimated. And maybe it's a reminder. Maybe he's different than everyone else. Maybe he's an alien like we talk about. But maybe if we challenge our starting pitchers a little bit more, they might respond a little bit more.
You know what? Because Zach, I'll have you ask about some specific names here in a second. But Tim, preach into the choir, because so much nowadays, and I get it, you're trying to protect pitchers because you understand more than likely now pitchers are going to be injured or spend time on the IL. Blake Snell is a great example. He spent time on the IL, but guess what? In the postseason, well, he stretched it out and he proved he could be as dominant, whether it was in inning 4 or inning 7, because of the stuff that he has. And the biggest asset a team has of being a true ace is being able to take command of a game, whether it's a 0-0 and it's the third time through a lineup, or you're in a jam. You are counted on to be that guy. And, I think a big reason why the Dodgers won this series, Tim, I heard Dave Roberts talk about this, and he said, I know a lot of things, the analytics, and he was initially talking about Miguel Rojas, of the analytics of saying, don't start Miguel, pinch hit for him. But he said, I feel like I had a great pulse on my team. And that is something that when you look at analytics for your entire roster, you can't quantify that data. That is, who do you believe in those situations? And Dave Roberts said, I trust my aces, these guys. If they say they can do it and they can give us the best chance to win, then so be it. And we got to see a tremendous performance. And that's what I love about the game, Tim. I know that's what you love about it. I miss seeing those. I like to consider them like those dogs, those guys. Mike Mussina, I know that you would appreciate it. I was too young, but I love to go back and watch Moose pitch in 97, where that dude is just out there pitching the game of his life. Unfortunately, the Orioles lost that game, Tim. You know which one I'm talking about in 97?
I was there. The I was at all those games, yeah.
But that exact point, right, of they are capable of so much even in this day and age. But speaking of the Orioles, Tim, I got to ask you about a couple moves. And that, by me asking you, Zach, I'm going to take a breather. You can ask Tim about some of the names that we're hearing.
Yeah. So, Tim, every year it feels like, especially recently over the past few, it's been, hey, the Orioles need starting pitching. The Orioles need pitching help. And this year is no different. We've seen reports that the Orioles could be, in on these big name pitchers. In your opinion, is there a guy out there maybe specifically, or a couple of guys that in your head, you're like, hey, these guys are guys the Orioles should go after because they can take them to the next level? Are there guys out there that kind of stick out to you?
Well, Valdez is out there, and he's got great stuff. That combination of the sinker and the curveball are unhittable. Michael King is really good once he's healthy. I know Dylan Cease had a difficult year last year, but he could really help the Orioles, I would think. Ranger Suarez is a vastly underrated pitcher, kind of lost among all the other really good pitchers on the Phillies. Shota Imanaga is now a free agent. Go look at that guy's numbers the last couple of years, and suddenly he's out there. Every one of those guys would be either the number one or at worst the number 2 starter on the Orioles. And that's what they have to add. I mean, we saw what Trevor Rogers did at the end. He was, all year he was great, but and Dean Kramer's a good pitcher, and they got Wells is coming back. We don't know if they're going to, So they got to go get a starting pitcher if they're going to go from 75 wins back to contention. Because I'm telling you, fellas, this was not a mirage by the Blue Jays. They've got a lot of things figured out now. The Red Sox are getting better. The Yankees finished poorly, but they're going to get better from here. I really believe that. And if the Orioles don't go do something, they're going to have trouble competing again in what I think suddenly is a pretty darn good division.
With that being said, then, Tim, We know that they need to get some pitching, but where on the priority do they need a veteran bat? Because where the Orioles have the advantage, at least in the AL East, is they have a nucleus of young talent. And if it comes to fruition, they're in a good position. But the problem is that's a big question mark. There's no guarantee that Jackson Holliday, which you believe is Jackson going to become that all-star? Is Colton Cowser going to be able to make his adjustments and move forward? A guy that almost won Rookie of the Year 2 years ago now, or last year. Is the priority to get a veteran bat in the middle of that order? And if yes, where do you put him? Because we were going through a guy that I love. You mentioned Blue Jays, and I know it's not going to fit in Baltimore. I love Bo Bichette as a hitter. I think he is so underrated, and people forgot maybe how good he was. Game 7, his name would have been up there in the history books for what he did coming back on off of Ohtani, but he quietly was their best RBI guy before going down. He's really good with 2 strikes. But obviously you'd have to move one of your pieces, Westburg or Holiday, but that's an impact veteran bat. Do you think the Orioles are going to prioritize getting a guy like that, or try to find value?
Well, they have to go get a big hitter for the middle of the order, and Bo Bichette fits absolutely. You know, the guy didn't play from September 6th until the World Series, and his first at bat, of course, he gets a hit. I talked to Nathan Lucas at the batting cage one day and said, you know, what's the deal with that guy? And he just looks at he's been one of the best hitters in baseball for the last 5 years. How can people not recognize that? So yes, he would be a perfect fit in a lot of ways for the Orioles, who need a bat, because we all know last year they didn't score enough runs last year, period. So they need Kyle Schwarber for the middle of the order to hit 40 to 50 homers. They need, you know, Kyle Tucker to play right field every day. They need one of those two. They need to go get, you know, Alex Bregman and put him at third base. I mean, they're not going to get all of these guys, but if they get one of these guys, it is a huge advantage for them, because I refuse to believe they're not a good, they can't be a good offensive team, but they absolutely have to add a middle of the order hitter if they're going to go from 75 wins to 90 wins and get themselves back into contention.
Zach, you have one more follow-up, and then Tim, I got a couple things after, and I'll get you out of here. But Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. You know, how realistic do you think it is that the Orioles kind of open up the paychecks, you know, the wallet this year? Because we've been saying for a few years, it's like, hey, they're one batter away, you know, middle of the order bat. They're that number one starter away. Is this finally the year? I know they made that trade for Corbin Burns 2 years ago to kind of supplement. They knew they were losing Bradish for a majority of the season. But do you think this is kind of that year that maybe the Orioles go out there and are willing to spend more money than usual?
Yeah, I think it is the year, because it has to be the year because of what happened last year. You can't tantalize everyone with 3 years in a row like they played and then lose 75 games and leave people shaking their heads. You can't have that when the people in Baltimore have supported this team. So yes, I think now's the time, but it's easy for us to say that because it's not our money. And Kyle Schwarber, the Phillies are going to overwhelm him to bring him back. Kyle Tucker is going to be the best overall player, defense and offense, on the market. The Orioles are in huge competition to get any of these guys. I mean, I know the Red Sox really want Alex Bregman back, and I think I know he wants to go back, but at the right price. So yes, they have to spend money, but let's be clear, they are up against some serious competition because so many other teams need to add players also.
Yeah, especially in that AL East that we've been mentioning. A lot of these guys would fit in New York, would fit with the Red Sox. It's going to be very curious to see what happens. And to your point, someone will overpay. It always happens. I mean, heck, Juan Soto, we knew was going to go for a pretty penny, Tim, $750 million. You know, that maybe wasn't the exact number I was thinking, but the Mets paid for him. Why? They felt he would make that impact. So it'll be curious to see. I always love the baseball season. Baseball has brought so much joy and experience Tim, one thing on a big story, obviously, I think you've seen it. The Clase situation, Luis Ortiz. This is the part that is a little bit more troubling. And I hate this because then the one thing that you worry about is that anyone would think that the integrity of the game is being compromised. Now, I shouldn't say MLB has not been in this situation before, but in some ways it hasn't with the way that gambling has come to the forefront. But just maybe your thoughts on, do you think this will get better, or would you think it'll be worse before it gets better? Because this is the one thing you want to try to always have people when they turn on that screen and they want to believe that the magic that they're watching is what the great game of baseball is. Do you think that baseball can help get this under control, or do you think this is going to be a hard thing for all of professional sports moving forward?
Well, it's a dangerous situation, obviously, and it's really dangerous for the two guys who I'm not sure they'll ever play in the major leagues again with what they did. I have an old scout friend of mine since passed who told me that what happened with the Black Sox in the 1919 was so devastating that baseball, it wasn't on the up and up anymore. And he told me, if you're not sure, and I'm just using this as an example, if you're not sure when the ball goes through Bill Buckner's legs, whether he's trying or not, then nothing else matters. Of course, Bill Buckner was trying, got more hits than Ted Williams. He was a really good player. It has nothing to do with him. I just use him as an example. If the competition isn't pure, then nothing else matters. And if you're not sure if the guys out there are trying to win, then there's no reason to watch anymore. And that's what baseball has to come to grips with, is this can't happen again. Even if it's just guys spiking a 1-0 pitch to make $7,000 or whatever the heck it was, there can be no part of this. But you got to wonder, we knew something like this was eventually going to come once betting and baseball kind of joined forces. So I've never made a bet in my life. I don't even know how this stuff works, and I'm the most naive guy in the world. Like, no one would ever throw a game. Well, maybe I'm wrong about this. Maybe, guys, there's a lot going on that I don't know about, and maybe you don't even care to know about. All I know is I have to know when I watch a game that everybody is out there trying to win. If they're not, then we got to go watch something else.
And that's the fear and worry. Tim, when I was in spring training every year, this is well before all the legalized gambling and the deals with MLB and all of that. First off, gambling's been going on for years, whether it's been legal or illegal. But secondly, in spring training, two things that we've always had to talk about. We had those meetings, and it would be, all right, performance-enhancing drugs. You take them, here's the consequences. Suspended, you do it enough, you're going to be banned from the game. When it came to gambling, it was very black and white. It was, if you are participating in gambling associated with baseball, you will be banned more than likely from the sport, and it was always black and white, regardless of where it's come to now. But obviously people are in different positions. And you're right. I'm with you there that the game, the pure magic of it, I still believe in that. I mean, you couldn't write this script of what just happened in this World Series. You couldn't have. And that's the beauty of the unpredictable play of the game. And that's what you hope that always stays. And I guess we'll find out, Tim. We'll find out how it goes. It's definitely probably not the last we're going to hear from this. And I do want to point out, yes, you might not know what betting is, but you did figure out your camera this time. So I'm very proud of you on that. I did want to tell you that. Figured out your camera and you sound good. I think you got to give yourself more credit to the new technology, at least.
I got some help, Ryan, okay? Younger people came over and double-checked my computer. Are you happy now? I'm terrible at this. It's a miracle it ever works when I'm in there.
Hey, you are incredible, and also you and Jeff are incredible on the podcast, by the way. You and I talked about it. I didn't have a chance to talk to you in person about this. you were getting my dad to chuckle in ways that doesn't happen very often. And you got him to really, we found a way to have him lighten up a little bit. And I think that's the beauty of what you guys are doing over there.
Well, thanks. That's because we didn't ask him about the streak. We asked him about playing video games with you when he was a kid. We asked him about dunking a basketball. We asked him about things that people don't usually ask him about. I know your dad pretty well. I know what he likes and I know what he doesn't like. So the goal is do not go somewhere where he's going to clam up. Let's go somewhere where he's going to talk openly. He's a very funny guy, a very engaging guy, but you have to ask him the right questions. Otherwise, we're going to get Cal Ripken talking about the streak, which he's done 10 million times. But no one's asked him in 10 years, when's the last time he dunked a basketball? His eyes got this big.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know exactly, especially with you as the premier defender back in the day, too, you know? Still one of the best photos, Tim, right there. He was defending you. You were going up for the layup. But I got to tell you that you looked like, in my book, I know you're going to say the other. Don't even say the other part. Tim Kurkjian scored on Cal Ripken Jr. That's how I view that in my mind. Whether or not that's actually what happened is a whole different story. Hey, Tim, we started a new thing, a book club, so to speak, but it's like a movie or show club. Zach and I are going to do it every week. Of all the shows or movies or anything you've watched over time, what is one of your favorites? Doesn't have to be sports, but we're going to do this each week. We're going to kind of review and talk about it. It's kind of like homework for Zach because he's so young, Tim. You mentioned 2001 and Randy Johnson. Zach was 1 year old. He doesn't even know. He knows Randy Johnson.
I was going to say, not that.
He didn't experience it. So maybe can you give us something that's one of your all-time favorites, shows or movie?
The scene from Miracle where Kurt Russell delivers the 2-minute speech to the team. You were born to be hockey players, every one of you. I literally cry every time I watch that scene. It's the greatest inspirational speech in the history of inspirational speeches. And keep in mind, I can't even skate. I've never played hockey in my life. But when that guy looked those guys in the eyes and said, tonight, we're the greatest hockey team in the world, and the music behind it, it's one of the great scenes in the history of movies. And it might beat any baseball scene that I've ever seen in any movie, because apparently Kurt Russell really nailed the coach.
He really did. You know what? We're adding that, or we're going to review that because Tim, I'm right there with you. That scene, goosebumps, chills.
I was going to say, so when I was 18, my senior year of high school, I coached a 12-15 baseball team, and we made it to the championship. And I learned and recited that entire speech to my group of 12 and 13-year-olds, and they went out and won it. They did it. So
look at that.
It worked.
So good. And go Google the 5-year-old kid that knows every word from that. I saw it years ago. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. The 5-year-old kid looks at the camera and goes, screw him, like that. And I went, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Oh man. You know what, Tim, I'm going to go actually watch I'm going to watch the highlight of the speech. I'm going to go watch the little kid give his rendition. And then maybe Zach, he'll have to show his rendition one day on the show, just that we can compare notes of who did it the best. Well, Tim, I appreciate it. And for everyone that hasn't seen, this is a great game, or what, you and your son, Jeff, guys, go check it out. It's tremendous. Tim, you're the best. I mean that wholeheartedly. Even when camera works or not camera works, you are the baseball guy, in my opinion. So thank you for taking the time. And I look forward to talking to you next time.
All right, fellas. Thanks for having me. Loved it. See you.
See you, Tim. Tim Kurkjian, everybody. Oh, he is the best.
If there were people, like, if you actually want, if someone's like, who's the best baseball mind out there, just facts, knowledge, everything, Tim Kurkjian is up there with everyone. Absolutely.
And it's the enthusiasm. We talk about the authenticity of anything that you do. Tim, the reason why he's so great, he's enthusiastic, he's authentic, and he is so passionate about the game of baseball. and he'll give an honest assessment, which I love, but it's also not in the negative light. He's just passionate and he explains it how he sees it and the moment. It's just incredible. Zach, I didn't expect, well, I guess I kind of did. We had a full show today, and it's been a great show. Holy shirts and pants, man. We've had a ton of you tune in on YouTube, X, and Facebook. So if you're new to this channel, hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to be a channel member and see what we're doing behind the scenes for our Rips Good Kids and Better Kids, we had a little vertical live stream on YouTube. Click that join button. It helps us help you as we want to do this on the day-to-day. But we are live at 5 Monday through Friday right here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Zach, am I missing anything?
No, but I did want to add one last tidbit that I kept out from Tim on that. My miracle on ice speech. So it just happened. I did not do the math or really think we were going to make it to the championship. The final 2 rounds, the semifinals and the championship, I was a senior in high school, were on senior week. So I delivered the miracle on ice speech via FaceTime to this group of kids huddled around the phone.
Okay.
I was like, I called my brother. I was like, turn it up. I was like, turn it up and hand him the phone. And then I delivered the speech.
Well, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, shirts and pants. Well, guys, we appreciate you guys. We're going to be back tomorrow to do this whole damn thing again. And we'll dive more into obviously what happened with Bolly's best bet yesterday with our friends up at Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races and West Virginia. We'll get to that tomorrow. And I got to shout out again, Merit Clubs. Thank you guys, as always. $1 enrollment right now for early Black Friday savings, and they're offering 3-day free trial passes. So how do you spell free or $1 early enrollment?
MERRITT.
When I move, you move.
Just like that.
All right, cue the music. Is it playing?
Yeah. Bow, bow.
As always, here on the Ryan Ripken Show, we appreciate everything you. Have a day, have a night, have a great stinking rest of your Tuesday, and come back and join us live at 5 here on the Ryan Ripken Show.